Hi, I'm Jacqueline Evans. I go by Jackie. I've been with UPMC in the GYN oncology department for almost 7.5 years. So I went to Drake University, go Bulldogs, in Des Moines, Iowa, and I was a psychology major. So when I went to college, my parents said you can always do your art as a side gig or in your spare time, which I'm still waiting for that spare time moment to come. And my sophomore year in the summer, I took a 1 credit course called The Brain, and the state medical examiner taught that. And we actually dissected human brains. And I'm an artist. I absolutely loved it, like with this big carving knife, and I was so meticulous. And it quickly became apparent to him that he had a budding surgeon on his hands. So by the end of that course, it was just a 2-week course. I was pre-med. He walked me to the pre-med department. We got signed up, and that was the beginning of it. When I was a child, initially I was going to open up my own restaurant and call it the Stagecoach Inn and dance there with my best friend. And then wanted to become a semi driver with a really cool cab because I like driving and traveling. And then I decided I was going to be a commercial artist. And that's what was going to be my last aspiration when I was in high school. I took up distance running. I did a little bit in college because I was on a floor with a lot of the distance runners at Drake University. And then it kind of fell by the wayside. And when I got into fellowship, I was away from my husband and started running again, distance running. And so I had that aspiration of I want to run a marathon, and then ended up fracturing my pelvis in 2 places from just overuse. And finally healed myself, and just after the first marathon was addicted. So, I would do a couple a year, had some babies, and I was running the Los Angeles Marathon, and my brother was supposed to run with me but was injured, so he just ran the last quarter with me. And he, trying to keep my mind off the heat and the cramps in my legs, he was like, all right, how many marathons have you run in each state? He was trying to make me do that math. Well, it took all of the last 7 miles to calculate out that I had already run 32 states. So by the end, it's like, well, I only have 18 states left. That seemed like an easy feat. Well, I did it in about 2.5 years. I finished up those 18 states, and they weren't the low-lying fruit. They were, Hawaii, Alaska. But marathoning, more of it is actually the planning. I would write my own training plans, train with my best friend. And it was, I don't want to say an escape, but maybe a reprieve from medicine where nobody could touch me. I didn't have a pager. My cell phone wasn't ringing. I didn't have the computer. It was really an escape, and it afforded me a little bit of time just to be outside and do something aside from medicine. And I enjoyed the training almost as much as the marathon itself. Oh, 1,000% Brooks adrenaline GTSs. I've been running in those for probably over 20 years. It's kind of embarrassing. I eat very healthy. I think for 90% of my life, I kind of live an incredibly healthy lifestyle. But my guilty pleasure is I have grape Kool-Aid every single day. And I so look forward to my grape Kool-Aid. So it wasn't a sit down, listen to me piece of advice, but my maternal grandmother was somebody I always looked up to. The advice she gave me was just in the way she lived her life. And she was never critical overtly about anybody, never. She died at 96. Never did I hear her utter a negative word about anybody. And I knew in her mind she must have just been balls to the wall, like, I can't stand this person or they're evil. But she never uttered that. So she always carried herself above stooping to that level. And I think that rose her above everybody in the community. Like, her best friends were 40 years younger than her because everyone wanted to be around my grandma. Like, she was just always so positive. But I think the one thing that really resonates was, I remember she probably would have been about 93, and she always thought that her grandchildren were like the best. You know, of course, you keep all the nonsense away from your grandma. But even if you told her all the things you did, she would just smile, and she had that like little glimmer in her eyes. But I remember one day she said to me, I didn't lead this elaborate lifestyle. And I always knew my lot in life, and I accepted it. And when I accepted it, I couldn't have had a better life or a happier life. And so I keep learning from that every single day to say, you know what, we get things thrown at us every single day, and that's just our life. And you can either accept it and make it the best that it can possibly be, or you can sit and cry and whine about it. And I've always just tried to be my grandmother. Like, if I could just live one day at the level my grandmother lived her entire life, I'm a better person.